Hey, Cleaning Nation, welcome to our Facebook Live. We do it every, Wednesday, 2 o'clock Pacific, 5 o'clock Eastern. For those of you listening, yes, Lindsay has a better microphone than I do and headphones, and she's super professional. So I'm sorry about my crappy, unmodified voice versus her sexy radio voice, but we're just going to do the best we can. Today, I think Lindsay went through, by the way, if you guys reach out to us on Instagram, or in our Facebook group, we have coaches on there checking in, seeing what's shaking. So Lindsay went to them and said, what does Cleaning Nation want to know? What do they want to hear? What do they want to talk about? And that's what we're doing today, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that is what we're doing. So I went to our outreach team and I was like, what are the top questions we're getting asked? And there was like two main themes. I wasn't surprised because there's always two main themes with Cleaning Nation. So we'll just dive right in, and I bet from the questions you can get an idea of the themes. So the first thing is kind of an example, but we hear this a lot that people use like one lead source. Like, for example, this person's like, I use Angie's Leads and it costs so much because I pay per lead and most never even respond. It has been such a waste. How do I get better leads?
All right. So there's really two questions. One's like, well, not a question, but I'm gonna respond. We've been doing this for a decade, help thousands of owners of cleaning companies. And I have no problem with Angie's or just any of the ones that resell leads, right? Because say it costs $100 to generate your own lead. You can buy one from Angie for $25, but they're going to sell it to 4 people, and that's how they make money, right? So two things. One, I've never really heard anything good from any of our clients about any of those kind of services. That said, so I wouldn't recommend, and I'm a big fan of also having my own, because even if you can get some business off of there, it's really hard to scale something that you own if you're constantly using someone else's lead service. What if the leads they have start going back, or if they're your only source, right? I'm okay with a source, but not your only source. So there's that. That said, most of the time the people that have had bad experiences, it's because their sales process doesn't line up with the lead source that they're in. So they know that it's a competitive deal, but they are just getting out competed, right? They call the guy back in an hour, and they don't call the person to call back because someone else called them back 5 minutes after they submitted the lead, or 7 people called them. Everybody called them 5 minutes after they submitted the lead. And by the time you get there, they're already done. So I'm not saying Angie's good or bad, not something I would do. I would find my own way to generate leads, which we'll talk about. But for all the ways that you're going to do it, especially on residential, speed to lead is really important. Right. So for commercial, it's more about, for the better relationships, more about cultivating relationship. If they call you today, you call back later today or even tomorrow, not the end of the world. But for residential, I was on a training call with one of our next level people today, and I was like, if I'm looking for in and out right now, and the in and out people call me 4 hours from now, probably already eaten and I'm over that vibe, right? I'm onto something different. So, the biggest mistake we see people make when it comes to lead gen is they go about it the wrong way. And I'm not knocking whoever asked it, or actually this is a conglomerate question. So I'm not knocking any of you specifics for doing this, but they think it's lead source, right? Because we want, again, I think I've mentioned this before. One of my mentors, a guy named Alex Hormozy, great business guy. If you want to listen to his stuff, he's great. Talks about there's no silver bullet. There's not a single silver bullet. Like it's 100 golden BBs, right? So, which is so true. So we think it's all about, we want it to be simple. We want there to be a silver bullet. And that matches up perfectly with the marketing companies because they market themselves as a silver bullet. So we're going, if I could just learn how to I wish there was something I could the lead factory, right? I fax over an order for 80, and I'm using fax because I'm being ridiculous. Lindsay's confused, like she doesn't know what a fax is, but it's a thing, a facsimile. I send over my order for 32 leads. I pay $1,200, the income, the leads, and blah, 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 blah. That's what we want. That lead factory does not exist, right? And Facebook will tell you they're that, or imply. So will Google, so will billboards, so will radio ads, direct mail, telemarketing. Pick a marketing thing. That's all, what we're trying to get as close to as possible. But the reality is, it's not about the media. That's the easy thing. It's easy to spend money. We wish, again, that's what we'd all love. I just give you money and there's the customers. Wada bing, wada bang. If that was the case, we'd all be billionaires. But it's not. So the problem is people start with the media, but they forget who they're speaking to, right? So they don't start with their client and the problem that they solve for that client. They start with the media. But if I'm selling coaching services to owners of cleaning companies and I have the best message ever that's wildly compelling, but I put it in my wife's yoga class and there are no owners of cleaning companies there, it's not going to be super effective. Because I've got the wrong person, right? Like I'm not looking at the right people. And if I'm talking about how to grow a cleaning company and they're worried about relaxing and doing yoga and maybe getting a break from their kids, my messaging might be fantastic, but not for those people. So I want to encourage you all, get crystal clear on who you're trying to help first. And then you're like, then can I buy the media? Well, you can, but you're still, Facebook will cash those checks and you will not get a lot back. Second thing is how can I articulate that in a way that speaks to my people, right? So most of us don't do that. So we put out some version of I'll clean crap for money or $20 off your first cleaning or some weird thing that doesn't really speak to the people. So if everybody's saying $20 off your first cleaning and other guys will $30 off your first, and the next guy's $40 off, then we just kind of get in that competition, right? Or you're like, well, I don't talk about price. I talk about how I'm the best cleaner. Well, everybody says that they're the best cleaner. And if everybody's claiming it, it doesn't take a bright consumer to realize everyone's lying, but the one guy who may not be even in the ad. So we've got to start with who your perfect prospect is. One of the big mistakes newer companies are, they take money from anyone that weighs it. So you start with who your perfect prospect is. Then you get down to the problem that you're really solving. And it is not they have a dirty thing that they want cleaned, their home or their business. It is they want to come home and feel loved and relaxed and taken care of and pampered. And they want free time with their family and they want to feel good about their life. And they want to be acknowledged for the work that they did. They want a lot of stuff. And they'll tell you, I need clean. It needs to be perfect. They just want to be able to come home and relax, right? So you have to speak to the right thing. And then once you know who your perfect prospect is and you've got a message that's compelling to them, combined with an offer that's hard to say no to, then we can start putting that in media where your people are. But the media is not magic, right? If it's the wrong group, it's the wrong group. So we like Facebook and Google local service ads and stuff like that because there's a high hit rate of your clients, but you have to know who your perfect prospect is, what problem you solve, how to communicate that problem to them, and where they go to solve it. And then with that combination, now you can get marketing that actually works. And to make it even harder, just for you guys like, okay, I feel good, but I can do it. Well, it's a little more than that. The reality is most of it's not going to work the first time. That's the other thing people do is they put out money. They don't test the message. Their message sucks. They don't have a call to action. It's just like, call now for a free estimate or go to our website, and our website sucks. And then nobody calls and they're like, I tried direct mail or Facebook ads or whatever. It doesn't work, but they didn't really have a process. So you're going to have to test this stuff, test different headlines, different copy, different calls to action, different offers. And you have to have a sales process that works. So again, it's 100 golden BBs, not one silver bullet.
I love that analogy, that metaphor. 100 BBs.
She says she loves it because I pay her to be here, but she was napping. As soon as I was silent, she startled herself awake.
I realized I was on mute and I was like, let me fix that. No, it actually brought to mind, I forget, we had it, I'm not sure if it was one of our next level clients or whom it was, but the subject came up of door knockers, door hangers, and someone said, I forget, I wish I could remember exactly who, but it was more or less to the effect of, there's a new neighborhood, a new development with a lot of new people moving in. And the messaging was something like, want to keep your brand new house pristine, as clean as the day you moved in. And I was like, that is so good. I mean, as a recent new house owner, I'm like, oh man, if I saw that when I moved in, that would have just been sold immediately. So I just love that targeted and having a clear message and like literally putting yourself in those people's shoes of, moving in and wanting to keep it clean and nailing that pain. So I just had to throw that in there.
It's such a perfect example because they're probably living in chaos, like sick of boxes, want just one thing to be easy. Like you're speaking like, oh my God, that's exactly it. And if I put that message to someone that's been in their house for 10 years, I look like a crazy person.
Yeah. It wouldn't make sense.
But if I had a regular at $20 off your first cleaning, we don't cut corners, we clean them, to someone just moving in isn't really going to resonate. So great. That may have been the best callback you've done, Lindsay. That was so Spot on, baby. Mike Campion here. Do you ever listen to the podcast and go, this is great information. I just wish I could actually get it implemented. And I wish I could get some help. Well, we do that. If you would like either myself or my team's help actually coming up with a plan that's specialized to you and your business, because with these podcasts, obviously we have to be very general and we can only go 20 minutes at a time. If you'd like to jump on a call with myself or my team, go to growmycleaningcompany.com/talk. We'll jump on a call. There's no charge. And we'll help you get some absolute clarity around exactly what to do next and how to do it. The reason we don't charge for these calls is the plan that we come up with, people want help implementing that. If that's the case, we're happy to talk about it. And if it's not, that's okay too. We're happy to just help you come up with a plan. So if you want to translate the information you're learning here into an actual plan that can change your life, give us a ring, growmycleaningcompany.com/talk. Love to either myself or have one of our coaches walk you through and actually personalize the content you get here to where you're at with your business. Talk soon.
So the next question is, I see this a lot in the Facebook group too. So I'm glad our outreach team brought this up. Everyone wants to, they have a specific
By the
property.
way, Lindsay said our outreach team. Sounded like you said our Irish team. I'm like, just so you know, we'll hire all sorts. We're not really, Ireland's fine, Scottish, no UK, obviously they're terrible, but it's just funny. It's not like you said our Irish team. I'm like, we have an Irish team?
We have an Irish team.
Are they good?
I don't know. That would be fun.
All right, if you're from Ireland, on a job, you give us a ring. We'll check.
I mean, I have Irish heritage, so I'm immediately intrigued. I'm like, okay.
That's see how she's meant to say outreach, but because she's Irish, she's sneaking her own little perspective in. I caught you.
Oh boy. Okay, outreach team, our coaches. Everyone wants to know how to bid a certain house or a property. And they're always concerned about square feet and what do I charge for this many square feet? Mike, can you speak to that? Like, how do you address that in general?
So glad we're talking about that, because people get hung up on the goofiest thing. And it's not that pricing is not important. It is, but it's so simple. And I don't know why people make it so complex. So there are shortcuts out there that people will give to shortcut. Right? Well, 1,000 square foot house or 2,500, but they're just shortcuts and they're really inaccurate. So the way that we coach, and it is wildly effective, is you go first. Well, a couple of things. First of all, the way you communicate to your client is going to be a flat price to solve a problem, not per hour, right? Because per hour, it's just like $50 an hour. I could, it's just, they're just not going to value it. Right. But if you're like for $400 a month, and the same thing when first time I furnished my house when I had money, we bought a bunch of stuff and it was like, I don't know, it's like 20, 30 years. It was like 30 grand, which at the time was like, ooh, look at me. I'm a boss spending 30 grand on furniture. But the 30 grand to have a fully furnished house to me made sense. Like, yeah, that's a reason. Like this house is totally empty. Now for 30 grand, and I'm talking like art on the wall, not like fancy art, but like things on the wall, like sheets, towels, knickknacks, like professional, like the whole good thing. So for 30 grand, that made sense for a solution. But the designer, a bunch of stuff just came in from the, store or whatever, and the price tag was on the bottom. So I'd see a plant in the corner. This was a fine plant. It was like $189. I'm like, what? I'm not paying $189 for a fake. Are you out of your goddamn? Or some knickknack stupid thing on the table is like $64. I'm like, are you goddamn? I was furious. So if you had to come to me with, well, we could do this for this and this for this and this for, I'm like, when I look at it granularly, it was a scam. And they're all smaller numbers. But for 30 grand, to be like this empty house that you really can't live in, fully furnished, towels, dishes, like the whole kit and caboodle, ready to roll. 30 grand. I'm like, it's cheap price, right? So same thing with us. You'd think like the $400 a month or for commercial or residential, whatever it is for commercial, is going to be overwhelming. But it's really the hourly that sounds expensive. So if you're like, I will clean this toilet for 86 cents a minute. Like that seems super expensive. Like it just seems high. But when you're like, well, it's only $50 an hour. That seems high. But for $400, your house is generally going to be clean. You're going to feel great every other week when you come home. And the couple days after that, you're going to save 20 hours with your family. And you start putting together the overall effect. It's a great deal, right? So it's really important when we communicate with the customers. We don't get into how many square feet and and this goes for commercial too. They're going to be like, well, this much VCT and this much, and we need stripping and what. the whole thing's going to be handled. You know how you're managing your cleaner right now? You got other jobs to do. You're not going to worry about that crap. As long as your check clears, this thing's just handled. So taking it off their plate, a flat fee for a complete service is what we're offering. That's external. Internal, we just want to go, what are we charging versus, or what does it cost? Is really all you're trying to figure out. So if you know your hourly rate, like say after workers' comp and, you know, payroll tax and all, it's $20 an hour, right? You can base your, you know, we coach a 45% cost of goods sold, but just to make the math easy, say it's 50, you'd go, all right, so if it, you know, costs me $25 after, you know, payroll tax and workers' comp and all that, I'm going to charge $50. Well, if it takes 5 hours and it costs $50, well, that's $250. So times 2 is $500. Pretty easy. But people get caught up in these, we're supposed to be shortcuts. Well, 1,000 square foot should take this long. This should take this long. But it doesn't work that way, right? Because you can have a 4,000 square foot house that has one person in it and they're just using, you know, their bedroom and their kitchen and a bathroom. And there could also be, you know, a 3-bedroom apartment with 6 dudes living in it. It's going to be Lindsay just made a face going, I do not want any part of that. As a cleaner, as a resident, as a guest, as a neighbor, Lindsay doesn't even want to be in a zip code with that one. It just, and again, I'm not saying the rules of thumbs can't be generalized, but just, you got to know, you got to figure out what stuff takes. And the same with commercial, like they've got sheets, you know, and again, you go to the ISSA, which is our, you know, association for cleaners, and they'll have like square foot per hour. But even then, a warehouse is wildly different than a surgical room, which is wildly different than a car dealership showroom. So to some degree, it's because the only thing you really need to know is how many hours it's going to take. You have to know your hours. You multiply it out. I would recommend a 45 to 50% cost of goods sold. So that's the way that you go, and don't get all up in the square footage as these flat rules. Well, this many square footage equals this much price, because then you're just dumbly doing it and you're going to get bit when you do that 800 square foot apartment with the 4 dudes. It takes forever to clean, right? Versus the 5,000 square foot house that the guy never touches and it doesn't take very long. So yes, you are going to have to get the skill of learning about how long stuff takes. But at the end of the day, the reality is if you underbid it, you can just raise the price later. I made a mistake, you know, honor the price for a couple months and then I got to raise the price. If you overbid it, maybe you lose a client, but if you're good at marketing, or maybe you lose a potential client, but if you're doing the sales process right, you probably won't. Or you get a super profitable client. So the stakes aren't that high, right? So if it takes you 3 or 4 jobs to kind of figure out how long stuff takes, and every now and again you make a mistake, it's okay, right? Like if you bid too high, maybe you make it, maybe you don't. If you do, you make extra money. If you don't, just go get another lead. If you bid too low, well, you don't make as much profit, or God forbid you even lose a little bit of money for a month or two. You recognize that and you raise prices. So don't try and shortcut it with, you know, square footages and X square footage equals Y price, because it's too important. Really understand how long it takes, what it costs per hour, what you want your cost of goods sold to be, and then do the math. So is that too long, too boring? I was pretty math heavy answer, Lindsay.
No, I think it was really good.
It's tough because Lindsay and I know all this stuff. So when I tell Lindsay, she's like, this makes perfect sense. But then listening might go, well, I don't know. I don't know. So if that didn't make sense, Cleaning Nation, reach out. We'll see if we can clarify. All right. We have time for one more. You think we're done? Yeah,
we're just going to touch on the other big theme I saw. So the first one is leads, right? The first main theme was leads. The second main theme is getting quality workers, quality employees. So we hear a lot of like, they show up the first time and they're great, and then something happens and they just aren't the same person, or I can never find people that want to work hard, like some variation of that. So we're seeing a lot of that right now, I guess.
I may have heard that a few 100/1,000 times in the last decade. So the good news is this is a complete solvable problem, right? And I can prove it to you because if you're in any town of any size, there's a fast food joint that's got 112 employees, right? Not active, but on their roster to keep 20 at any given time for 7 days a week, yada, yada. So I promise you, it's weak thinking to just tell yourself people don't want to work, right? It's much easier than just solving the problem and getting in there. Okay. The reality is there's 2 things that need to happen and 2 things that people fail on. The first is the system and the second is the culture. So the system is they're hiring. They don't have a hiring. Well, they have a hiring system, but it's bad. It's some version of when we think we need someone, which is already way too late because they think they're perfectly staffed, but they're not because they still have to jump in. And what perfectly staffed to them means if no one calls in and we don't get any extra work and nothing takes any extra longer and no one has a vacation, no one ever gets sick, which is just not the reality. But if then, and nothing moves and we don't sell any new clients, then I'm fully staffed. And they think that's fully staffed, but that's like, no, you're 70% staffed. So typically what they think is fully staffed is not. That's first. Number two is their hiring system is so miserable, they turn it off too soon, right? So they don't start it early enough because they hate it. And then when they think they're staffed, they turn off right away when they're either not staffed or barely staffed or understaffed, but they think they're staffed because they don't want to do it anymore. And it's some version of, I put out an ad, I get 50, 100 applicants, some call, I do some interviews, they all suck. I make a bad hire. It's a miserable thing. And it takes a lot of time and it's frustrating because it's like herding cats with a bunch of these knuckleheads. So the system sucks and they don't know what to look for, right? They're looking for, I'm a good cleaner. Like I seem reasonable. Like I seem nice. It's a bunch of real squishy stuff. So you need a system where you've got hiring going on all the time and it's not painful. It's actually built into your business and it doesn't require you to do a bunch of headache that you hate. Because if it requires that, you're going to turn off as soon as possible. So our system, we have the cleaners run it. It's group interview, one-on-one interview, working interview. Can't get into the whole exactly how to do that. It takes weeks, if not a couple months to get installed, but that's the general idea. And the most important thing is the culture, right? So for us, when we hire someone, aside from knowing how to do the job, which for cleaning is easy because I can teach anyone that's got an adult regular IQ and a healthy body, you can teach anyone to clean. Core values you can't teach, right? So I'm sure you've heard the hire for culture and train for skill, certainly when it comes to cleaning, which is very trainable. So for us, it's have fun, make money, be real, and help out. And when I interview or talk to Lindsay, if she's a good fit or do I like her? Is she a good employee? I don't know, but I can it's just so nebulous. Like, I don't know. And same with her going, is this the home for me? Am I going to enjoy working here? She's like, I don't know. The guy seems all right. It's hard to tell. Right. But if I said, I just have to find out, she seems like she likes having fun in work and in life. If she seems to be a real person, if she cares about making money for us, for our clients, for herself, if money's important to her, she values it. And does she love helping out? Like, am I going to be perfect at that in one 20-minute interview? No. But can I get a lot closer with very specific? Yeah. And if you give me a 3-step interview with 3 different people in 3 different places over 3 different times, I can get pretty dang close and get pretty good at it. So typically what's happening is we don't hire for core values. So we put a bunch of flexible schedule, competitive pay, training, fast growth, and then we get people who want flexible schedules and high pay for not doing a lot of work. But if you put in, we're looking for, hardworking people that tell the truth, that have fun, or whatever your core values are, you'll get that. So you've got to understand what your core values are. You've got to interweave them throughout the whole process. You've got to be able to determine if the guy or gal's core values match or not. And then you've got to have a system that works in such a way that you enjoy doing it. It's not painful for you. So it can run all the time, whether you're there or not. And I know it sounds like a lot, but again, the cool thing is when you get all these things right, when you have a marketing system, when you have a pricing system, when you have a hiring system, it does take a little bit of thought and effort to get them set up. But when you've got a real business, something you can sell and people want, or you can let it pay you without you having to be there all the time and babysit. So there you go. I felt a little ranty. Anything to add or any questions or anything before we move on?
No, to be a music nerd, I always think of a mixing board, with the faders on it that you can push up and down. And anytime someone talks about either their hiring funnel or their lead system, I always think of a mixing board, like it's a pain in the butt to set it up and like literally tune it. Like the guitar needs to be at this length, the drums need to sound like this. But once you got it set, you record the whole album and it keeps going. Like you don't really have to do much usually.
And you might tweak it for a sound or for a song or for an intro, but once it's set, good to go.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
4% of our audience. That was a super.
I'm just being a nerd. That's all frisky. I got.
All right. Beautiful. Guys, gals, if that was helpful, growmycleaningcompany.com is where we've got all the podcasts. Obviously you can subscribe on Spotify or iTunes, wherever you want to subscribe. And if you want help, just reach out, growmycleaningcompany.com. You can even email me, Mike at growmycleaningcompany.com. We have a whole team of people. We love helping owners of cleaning companies. If you're not getting the results that you want, do something different. Keep doing the same thing, hoping for different results is crazy. Talk soon. See ya. Hey, Cleaning Nation, if you dug the content you just got, we don't do any ads and I don't sell anything on this podcast, but if you would just subscribe, rate, and review, it would be huge and I'd be so appreciative. Not only is it going to help me, but you'll help other owners of cleaning companies across the world work less, make more, and get profitable. So if you appreciate the value we give, again, subscribe, rate, and review. It would mean the world to me. I'd really appreciate it. And we sure appreciate your time and attention.